Hello, it's Patricia Warby here from Alchemy Therapies and My Emotional Audit, and you're very welcome. This is another in my weekly updates where I talk about all manner of emotional healing information. And today I wanted to talk more about how the body translates the mind, and this mind-body connection that we now know is very, very potent and can be the reason why people don't make headway and end up chronically ill. Because actually the body is a readout of whatever mental states you're holding in your vibration, if you like, what you're thinking about on a daily basis. And a lot of that comes from previous experience as a child or a young adult and what you learned about yourself in the world. And so the body really does express the perception that you make of your world and who you are in it. And there are very specific ways in which that can translate. And I wanted to talk really about how, for instance, the lack of support in childhood, which is probably the most common trauma that I see. Obviously, traumas can be a huge range of things, from major events, perhaps being held up at gunpoint or having a major car crash, or just growing up in a family that is dysfunctional in some way or another. And some of the stories I hear, are of intergenerational traumatic families, where the parents are children themselves in adult bodies. They may have had terrible childhoods or dysfunctional childhoods, and they kind of carry that through in the way they parent. And it's probably not, deliberate, but they don't give the child or the children a sense of being uniquely understood and held. And that lack of support is really the trauma. It's what happens inside you when you feel overwhelmed emotionally, and yet you don't have someone to metaphorically or physically put an arm around you and say it's going to be okay. And a lot of children, particularly if they're highly sensitive, carry that imprint in their bodies as an implicit memory of being alone and vulnerable and unlovable, actually, because that's how children tend to interpret the response they get, is that there must be something wrong with them. And therefore, that's how they face the world as adults. And then they go out and struggle. We all struggle with that kind of imprint. And how it manifests in the body is very, very interesting. So I see a lot of clients who struggle with gastric issues. The gastric system is actually really highly innervated. In other words, it has massive number of nerve cells that line from the upper gut, from your esophagus down into your stomach, and then the small intestine and the large intestine are richly innervated with vagal nerves. And the vagus nerve is one of the most important nerves in your body. I've done many presentations on the importance of the vagus nerve and vagal toning. But if you feel like unsupported, unacknowledged, unheld, or unseen, where that goes is generally the gut. And it can absolutely affect the way that you digest, and you can feel a lot of anxiety in that part of your body, a lot of tension. Maybe you get IBS symptoms, maybe you get a sort of clenching feeling. And that's largely because the message of safety in your body is absent. You didn't receive the message of safety. You see, messages of safety are communicated interpersonally by the people that are there to care for you, by the way they look at you, by the way they talk to you, by the way they touch you. And if you didn't get soothing touch or conversation, if maybe you were left vulnerable and isolated, you were made to feel wrong or out of place, or you were just not looked after, and other people saw your vulnerability and took advantage of you in whatever way, you learn that you are alone in the world, and that the world is a very unsafe place. Now, Dr. Gabor Mate has talked a lot about this. He's one of the most enlightened people I've ever come across in terms of his understanding of trauma. And so trauma can be anything that goes into the body and is held in the body as a sense of being unsafe. And so it's what you hold inside you that is the trauma itself, not the event. So it's very important to understand that. And if gastric system isn't where you hold your trauma, it could be in the lower part of your body, below the diaphragm. It could be in the sort of reproductive area. I get a lot of women with pelvic floor problems, burning, pain, or just a general sense of tingling or numbness in that area, because maybe they've been touched inappropriately in their childhood. Maybe there's sexual abuse there, or maybe there's body shame from being examined by doctors for whatever reason. And some girls go through very difficult, painful puberty, particularly if there's high stress in the family, because cortisol affects everything and makes it likely that you're going to suffer a lot of pain during menstruation, for instance, as a female. And so often children are brought in to be examined to see if there's a problem, and the examination itself can become a trauma. So the body may store that as a sense of it can't hold you, it can't support you, because that's what your brain is telling your body. That's the message: I'm not held, I'm not supported. Equally, you could have issues in head, neck, and shoulders, which is often tension there is about responsibility. It's about the burden of holding something. Maybe you had to hold a family secret when you were growing up. You know, I hear a lot of stories of families who had secret, you know, one of the parents had a secret affair or a secret family, or even you as the child may have been born to one of those secret relationships, and the family kind of know this, but they don't tell you. And so it's not always that you know what's wrong, you just know something's wrong, and you feel that in this part of your body. And then finally, you may hold memory in your liver, which could be from repressed rage, you know, if someone's betrayed you or humiliated you. So, you know, liver issues can often be related to that. And there are so many different like translations of mental or psychological issues into the body. And you need to understand that you're not mad, bad, or sad. You're just following a program that's been downloaded from the people you grew up with. And there are so many things you can do to break that habit of being. Now, at the weekend, I attended a conference called the TCCHE, which was to do with consciousness and human evolution, which is a really out there kind of title. And it was full of speakers who are pretty out there in terms of their understanding of the mind-body connection and what healing actually entails. And I have to say, it was mind-blowing as ever, just knowing that we have the power to change the physical manifestation of our bodies through our unconscious process. It's not a conscious will-based strategy, right? You can't just wake up one morning and say, right, I'm going to change my body and do it. You have to get into the realm of the unconscious, because that's where this mind-body connection lies. Your vagus nerve is part of your autonomic nervous system. And although we can intervene and change that, we can't do it by willpower or thinking, right? That's your central nervous system, and it's very, very different. So just knowing that there is a kind of a vibrational content to the human experience, that DNA is not a rigid structure like we've been taught, you know, the double helix, but a vibrational one, and it actually has a pattern that you can pick up. And if you're able to kind of get into the mindset of healing, which is about letting go, actually it's not about forcing and a left brain kind of I've got to fix this problem, but about letting go into being, then actually your DNA expression, your epigenetics can actually change. So that's really key, I think, for understanding that your thoughts and feelings do impact your body, and what happened to you does obviously get carried in your body as these sort of signals which create ill health. So I'll talk next week, hopefully a bit more about how to release that, and maybe cover a little bit more of the science on that. But I just wanted to introduce the subject that we are not fixed. We are running a program. We're part of a kind of metaphysical existence here. And the quantum world really tells us more about that. So I'll cover that next time. But thanks for listening and take care of yourselves. Bye for now.